Let's get into it then. Here with the man who runs the Improving Scottish Football podcast, Kieran Hennigan. Thanks for coming to do this with me, mate.
It's a pleasure, Josh.
Yeah.
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too, mate. I know we spoke a little while ago. We had something planned, and then unfortunately my dad passed away, so we had to stop it and rearrange it. So I'm glad we've got it rearranged now. I'm excited for this.
Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm glad to sit down with you as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
And always, obviously, enjoy talking Scottish football.
Aye, absolutely.
The never-ending conversation.
The never-ending conversation, man. So you basically, how I seen you was through your video on TikTok, talking about the restructure of the leagues and what your kind of thought and opinion is on it, right?
Clubs playing each other 4 times a season. It's repetitive, it's boring. Show me one fan who still wants that. We need league reconstruction in Scotland. I'm going to explain how we do it. There are huge clubs in the Championship, like Falkirk and Ayr, Raith Rovers, Partick Thistle, Dunfermline, you name it. But it's so difficult for them to get up because the playoffs are stacked against them. The Premiership would be more competitive, there'd be more room to play younger players, and there'd just be more variation and excitement, which in turn could lead to a better TV deal. But we know, because we've watched Scottish football for so long, it's got to be evolution, not revolution. They're just not going to go for a 16, 18 team league. It's got to be a 14 team league. This is exactly what Greece do. They play each other twice, and then they split into a top 6 and then a bottom 8. So the top 6 and the bottom 8 play each other twice more, and that keeps the 4 Celtic and Rangers games that the broadcasters want. The winner of the bottom group gets to play off against whoever finishes 4th or 5th overall for that last European spot, and you also throw in another relegation place as well. All of this is to maximise drama and jeopardy and to make Scottish football as exciting as it possibly can be, because everyone knows it can be better than what it currently is. 87% of fans want to see a bigger top flight. And we keep on saying fans are the lifeblood of the game. So why aren't we listening?
So that's how you came up, and I seen about you, and that seemed to get a fair bit of traction for yourself, right?
Yeah, so over all kind of social media platforms, it got over 1 million views.
Wow.
Which was a new experience for me.
Okay.
Because I came into this wanting to do podcasts and that kind of longer form conversation. So then to have to kind of cut something up so short for TikTok and for Twitter and Instagram and stuff like that, I wasn't quite sure how it was going to do. And the whole notion of going viral was quite alien because, I think probably up until then, if something got a few thousand views, then happy days. And that just absolutely blew up. But it's brilliant because it reached a whole new audience.
Of course.
Beyond what the podcast would typically reach. So that's good. And it also obviously struck a nerve because things don't go viral unless you're talking about something that a lot of people care about and agree with. So it was good to know that there was a lot of people out there that was resonating with.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're spot on with that. It doesn't go viral if it doesn't hit a nerve, as you say. Which, yeah, man, it's that kind of whole conversation has been going on. I mean, I'm 32, so that whole conversation has been going on for a long time. I mean, as I've grown up and stuff like that. Certainly, I would say since probably kind of maybe approaching 2010-ish or something, right? I feel like that was kind of probably before that too, but that's kind of when everything came around. So it's been a long time in the discussions. Before we quickly get into that, what's your, I know we're not going to get into teams and everything, but what's your football background? Have you just grown up, always going to games, loving it, all that type of stuff?
Yeah, so I'm 38, so I started watching Scottish football kind of late 90s.
Okay.
And for me, that transition into the early 2000s was the heyday of Scottish football. The quality of players that we had back then, the Celtic and Rangers lineup, when you think about that, Laudrup, De Boer, Larson, you name it, it was incredible, the players that we had in Scottish football. And at that time, we, were quite well respected in Europe. There was always this talk of, should Celtic and Rangers go to the English Premier League? And if they do, could they compete for the title? Or would they be in the top 4? The time since then, Scottish football has slipped so far down the pecking order. The chat now is, if Celtic and Rangers were to go to the Premier League, would they even stay in there? Or would they be in the Championship? Is that more the level that we're talking about? And little did we know it in those early 2000s that was the heyday of Scottish football. And what really should have happened is we should have had some sort of plan to keep on progressing, some sort of strategy to ensure that the Scottish football game grows and develops and embraces new ideas. But complacency kind of set in, and it just fell behind every other league in Europe. Scotland is the only country in Europe where I can think that Scottish football where football is so much worse than it was 20 or 25 years ago. Every other league, I think, in Europe, you could probably say that it's better now.
Point.
And Scottish football, it's a shadow of its former self.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And it's funny because literally the last little bit I wrote down in here last night when I was making some notes was I was like, when was the last time Celtic and Rangers made the knockout phase of the Champions League, right? And I know Rangers have had their issues and everything like that, but Celtic was 2012 and 13 when they got knocked out against Juventus. So we're talking that's coming 13 years? My maths is terrible. Yeah. 13 years. Rangers is 05, 06. Again, they've had their issues, and fine, they've done well in the Europa League, and I know Celtic obviously UEFA Cup final, in the kind of 2000s as well. But yeah, I think that says a lot, because like you said, like my early memories of football are right around that 2000 time. As a Liverpool fan, I'm thinking that Michael Owen against Arsenal in the FA Cup, that type of time. And Rangers and Celtic were really big. The games were really good. They were doing well in Europe. And yeah, it slipped away quickly. That proves it. It slipped away really quickly.
Yeah, there's a whole myriad of issues that have all kind of contributed to that decline. So, it's not as simple as saying like, it was one thing that kind of happened overnight. I think, yeah, it's just this, it's a complicated issue, but for me, fundamentally, it is the lack of vision and strategy at the top in terms of what do we want to be as a footballing nation, and from an SPFL perspective, from a kind of league perspective, it's like, what do we want Scottish football? What do we want the league to be recognised for? Do we want to be a top 10 league in Europe? Do we want to be renowned by bringing in through young players? Do we want to have a particularly attractive style of play? Like, what do we want to be? Because for any competent modern organisation, whether you're in football or you're not in football, you should have some sort of goals, some sort of strategy, some sort of vision. And then you put the process in place to achieve that. And that for me is kind of the big gaping hole in Scottish football. It's like, what do we want to be, guys?
Yeah.
Like, because at the moment nobody's really driving any sort of vision.
Yeah.
And we're all just kind of letting things happen to us, and the things that are happening to us are not positive, and we're just slipping further and further behind the English Premier League and other leagues in Europe. And, to stay on the kind of Celtic and Rangers comparison again, back in the day, Celtic and Rangers used to compare themselves to kind of top kind of European clubs, your Ajax, Porto. That used to be kind of the level. That was the peer group. And now it's more like your Copenhagen's, your Club Brugge. But actually, the longer this goes on, the lower that quality of club is. And it's such a slow, sometimes these things happen so slowly.
Yes. That
you don't quite appreciate how bad it's getting.
Yep.
It's a bit of a shit situation
to
sum it up.
And I think even like this is like what I've been thinking about it. I know Craig sat here doing the sound as a Celtic fan, so be careful what I say. But I think even for them, right? Like I did a video on this that did quite well. It's one of my better videos I did just on how the Rangers catch Celtic, and I actually looked into, since Rangers have come back up into the top league, right, after everything that happened, they've won 2 trophies. And that was in, I forget when Rangers came back up. I forget the exact year, but it's been a while. They've won 2 trophies. And yeah, okay, throughout that time, Hearts and maybe won a Scottish Cup. Aberdeen obviously win the Scottish Cup this year. And there's been the odd other team that have won like the Cups. And Rangers, obviously, Steven Gerrard wins the league when he comes there and does that. But it's, people always say it's Celtic and Rangers. It's Celtic. and the league has just turned into purely Celtic. Now, I know there's other leagues across Europe, PSG, right, in France, for example. They constantly, you would say Bayern Munich, typically, season in, season in, win their league. But obviously we've had Leverkusen, you've had Dortmund in the time period. But I think even for Celtic, it's like where are you guys going? Because you're talking about like complacency. They know with the money they've got. I don't see Rangers catching Celtic again, personally. I know it swings around the belts, but I just think Celtic are too far ahead now with constantly making Champions League. I think the new Champions League format suits them, because I think when they get games at Parkhead, they can get against teams and try and make the playoff game, and they made it tough against Bayern Munich this year. And I just think it's even Celtic at the top end, our top teams becoming complacent. And as you said, you're actually what's that slowly doing is your comparisons now of who you actually are slipping into those other teams that you said. It's not the global historic teams that Celtic and Rangers should be up against, like your Ajaxes and stuff like that. It's slipping even further even for them. And to kind of maybe move off of the Celtic and Rangers thing, so I'm sure we could probably talk about that forever, but like I said, I got a lot of family that are Hearts fans, got friends that support Hibs, everything. And I remember when, like Robbie Nielsen had a phase at Hearts, Naismith his phase at Hearts, and they're coming third and they're coming third and they're coming third and starting to get into Europe, but they're finding it hard to play in Europe, and then it's affecting the league for them. And I was saying to my mates that are Hearts fans, yous making Europe's actually not helping yous, because your manager is now, your team can't compete with 2 games weekly, right? Because of your wage and your budgets. It takes time and consistency to keep that going. And what then happens is you almost seen that with Hearts this season. It was just a massive explosion and drop off. And I just feel like the teams that even come third, what are you really aiming for other than, okay, yeah, you get into Europe, great, and you never know the Conference League and all that, you might get a decent run, but like, what are you actually even aiming for when you're not Celtic and Rangers, right? Like, there's just nothing to really play for. Maybe a cup run, which Aberdeen got this year, but I just don't know where the rest of the league even goes for their like goals.
So, yeah. So there's a lot there to unpack. I don't think the gap between Celtic and Rangers is too wide, because actually Celtic aren't overly well run.
Okay.
They're not a particularly modern club in terms of embracing analytics and progressive thinking and AI. Fundamentally, they're still run by a meddling billionaire.
Sure.
So it won't take, if a competent Rangers can come in with new systems and are smart about how they do it, it's definitely not impossible to catch Celtic, in my opinion. The gap is certainly going to be closer this year. I'd be amazed if it isn't. But I think probably not this year. I think Celtic would still likely win the title. But I wouldn't be surprised if the following year that could definitely be Rangers. And also, again, if Hearts in particular with Tony Bloom's analytics come in, smart clubs in Scotland are few and far between.
Yeah.
In fact, incredibly hard to find. For decades, Scottish football clubs they've just been run really shit.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think of smart clubs, your Brentfords, Bournemouths, Brightons, all those sorts of clubs. I mean, there's nothing comparable in Scotland. Everyone's kind of been doing the same old stuff. So there is space for someone to try something new and make proper inroads. And if Hearts properly embrace analytics and try something a little bit outside the box, then I think they could do well. I think Hibs as well with the Black Knight group. Again, if they're smart, they could do stuff. And Aberdeen are also doing some interesting stuff, and they've obviously got some guaranteed European football, which will bring in some money. And they are shopping in some very interesting markets, Aberdeen as well. It's nice to see a lot of these clubs embracing new markets and new ideas. Aberdeen are shopping in Iceland, Finland, Macedonia, etc., rather than bringing in your League One, League Two journeyman, which is what used to happen for decades. But like I say, there is this huge space for competency that has been lacking. And that's a huge opportunity. And to pick up your point about Scottish clubs not doing well in Europe, your kind of third, fourth place teams, Scottish clubs and the Scottish media love to make excuses about why that is. And one of the ones I think is the kind of what you said, we can't manage playing twice a week, or the qualifiers are coming at the beginning of our season and our players aren't up to speed. Bullshit.
Yeah.
It is all excuses for being shit.
Yeah.
Shitly run.
Yep.
And, crap styles of play that aren't, that are fine in the SPFL, but aren't good in Europe. And you do not need to look far for evidence to back me up here, because let's look across to Scandinavia. There are smaller clubs. Your Bodo Glimt, the most famous example of them all, right?
Yep.
They are fucking smashing it, and they are smaller than, they're comparable to like a St. Mirren. Come on, they're in the semi-finals of European competitions. They're smashing goals past, 5 goals past Roma. Obviously knocked Celtic out 5-1 on aggregate a couple of years ago. They're a tiny fucking club in the Arctic. But guess what? They're just smart.
Yes.
And they knocked out Celtic when they weren't even in the middle of their season, because it was in February and their season hadn't even started. So, like I say, they're just a smartly run club with a great coach. So all it will take is one of these other Scottish football clubs to wake up and do things a little bit different. And like I say, I think there is a huge opportunity for inroads.
To maybe catch maybe at least one of the old firms a bit cold, maybe.
100%.
Probably more Rangers at the moment.
No,
than Celtic,
I mean,
but yeah.
people say, oh, that's impossible. Like the gap is too wide.
I hate that.
I think that's just pessimistic.
Yeah.
Shit. And if you think like that, then it will never happen.
Yeah.
Obviously it's going to be fucking impossible. It really is. It's going to be really challenging. But if you don't aim high enough, then you're always going to fail. And that's been a big problem with Scottish football in general, is the lack of ambition. Just be like, oh yeah, well, we just want to focus on getting third. Is that it? Come on, at least aim for higher, and you never know. Yeah, I'd like to see more ambition. Just generally with every club.
Yeah, you're right with the smartness and the whole Tony Bloom thing. I'm just about finished the How to Win the Premier League book by Ian Graham, who was the analytics guy at Liverpool. They brought him over from Spurs. So I'm kind of just finishing that, and he does reference a lot Tony Bloom in that book, as well as the Brentford owner. I forget, but
and if I can, sorry, I've just
go ahead.
there was one other thing I was just going to mention, Josh. There, regarding the kind of Celtic and Rangers, and them potentially being caught by the rest of the pack.
Yeah.
Just to kind of back myself up a little bit on that, because a lot of people will be like, that's total nonsense, and fair enough. But it does just require a Leicester scenario. When Leicester won the league, it was just that perfect storm where every other top club just had a shit year. Mm-hmm. And you know what? Celtic had a shit year in the COVID year. Rangers have had quite a few shit years. There is always a chance that those two things could coincide in the same season, and that could also coincide with one of these other clubs getting their act together.
Spot on.
So it isn't impossible. Very unlikely, but not impossible.
Well, Aberdeen looked like they had some form of potential to do that this season. I know they obviously eventually do dip off a fair bit, but there was a feeling I felt around everyone like, oh shit, they could split this two here, and it really is only going to take one person to do it once for other teams to then finally go, hold on a second, there's an opportunity there, and I'm with you. I think, again, going back to all the analytical stuff and everything like that, Scotland's just, I hate to say this, but even as a nation, we're very slow to change, and we're very far behind on so many things. I mean, I'll even take this for example. Like, I was in California. Everyone's doing this type of stuff. Or I will say this, even working from home. Like when I lived out there, I moved out there in 2011, and people are doing that. Do you know what I mean? And I know that was a global thing that changed, but just so many, just the ways of thinking don't shift quick enough or slow enough. And if you get a guy like Tony Bloom that does come into Hearts that is thinking, and I did I read this on your Twitter maybe? Like you reposted something, but it was someone saying that about if Tony Bloom I think he's maybe looking around thinking, I could be really far ahead of everyone else here with me coming in and taking over a club and pushing us there, and hopefully maybe being so far ahead that we can stay there and people not to catch us. But you're completely right with the whole excuses and third place and Yeah, it's just like I also feel like this too, even with football. Like it needs a like sometimes I look at these managers that these teams bring, like Hearts, Aberdeen, Hibs, and all these guys that you're hoping that would maybe break into there. And I watched the first interview and I'm like, nope, not going to happen. I watched Critchley's first interview at Hearts. I turned it off after 5. I turned it off after 5 minutes. I texted my mate Ali, who I said to you about who plays Hampton. I said, Ali, not going to happen. What do you mean? He plays really good football. He came from Liverpool. I said, I watched his interview. He's just using all those classic quotes that Fabrizio Romano uses when someone signs for a club. This is his only club he wanted and all that. Like all those classic things. And I immediately because not to that level, but of coaching and I think in a fortunate way, being a Liverpool fan at the time I did, with us kind of constantly in flow, certainly floating around 7th place, to then see a guy like Klopp come in and go, oh, that's what it takes. That you need the guy that talks like this, acts like this, walks like this. Obviously, as you said, the club then need to be thinking on the same path, ownership and everything like that. And I do agree with you. I do think there is a gap there, and I think I think over the course of the next 3 years, for me looking at it, and again, sorry Rangers fans, but I think Rangers are the ones that you can catch cold. I don't want to get.
Yes, you're more likely to catch Rangers cold than Celtic. Yeah. But like I say, I think it'll be difficult for Rangers to get much worse than they currently are.
Yeah.
As in, I think the new owners will be smarter than the old owners. Again, very low bar, and I think Russell Martin and will be better than Philippe Clement. But again, quite a low bar. But yes, obviously Rangers would be the ones to catch.
Even that, though, right? Just to finish off in this, and then maybe move on to a little bit of a different topic that I've got. But again, to kind of back my point up about managers, you could tell when Steven Gerrard came in just how he was, how he did his interviews when they beat Celtic at Parkhead that time. And he's like at the camera, like you need your manager actually does need to be like the X Factor part of it too. Like, and I think being clever and going to hire, I'm really intrigued to see McInnes at Hearts, because I know he floated around Aberdeen for a long time, and his talks with him at Rangers will be interesting with everything that's going on. But I do just think you need that bit of X Factor manager along with the smartness of everything that you're saying. I think everything works because I struggle sometimes with the data stuff. Because I attach myself so much like old football and my way of coaching and managing is like I would say, as you were saying, if I was like Hearts or something, I'd be like, come on, let's go for second, boys, and manage it and that type of mentality. And so I just think you need all those factors to combine, together to make it work.
Yeah, I agree. But we are also guilty of having a manager is God philosophy in Scottish football.
True.
And I would like to see clubs, again, think about those smart clubs in England, Brentford, Bournemouth, Brighton, etc. is they have a style of play and they have a philosophy that goes beyond the manager. And when a manager leaves, like Thomas Frank, they have someone who seamlessly swaps in. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you look at Celtic, again, I was saying they're not run overly smartly at the top. If Brendan Rodgers leaves, which he probably will do at the end of the season, or there's a good chance of that, who's going to come in? Well, chances are it'll probably be someone who will have quite a different style of play, have different ideas, and it'll probably be quite a big change because that's the way that Scottish football tends to be. It's like new manager, new style, new ideas, rather than having that bigger overarching club strategy.
Yeah, no, you're right, mate. You're spot on. You need it. It all needs to fit in. So let's get into your thought process on like the whole restructure. Like I said, I will have placed your little TikTok at the beginning of this video, so people will have seen what you've said. But like, break it down for me. What's your thoughts on it? What was it that you said?
So league reconstruction is at the top of a lot of fans' wish list because it's repetitive and it's boring. Let's be honest, playing the same team 4 times a season. Even to an extent having 4 Old Firm games, especially when it's actually 5 or 6 when you include the cups. So how do we make Scottish football less repetitive and boring? Well, expanding the league. And this is, I think over 80% of fans, I think 83% the last time this was properly polled, 83% of fans wanted a bigger top flight.
Yeah, I wrote it down. You're right. I think it was 81%. I wrote down. Yeah.
So, well, guess what?
Mm-hmm.
Fans should be consulted and their thoughts should be considered and taken into account, because football without fans is nothing.
We've seen that in COVID.
Yeah. And, without fans, I mean, well, if you continue to ignore fans, then it's not going to end particularly well. And so at least get those kind of ideas onto the table. In terms of how it could look, for me, moving to something like an 18 or 20 league top flight is too much. I think you're going to dilute the league too much by weaker teams. And even 16 teams is arguably too many. So what's the realistic option? I mean, for me, it was 14 teams. So adding 2 more into the top flight. This, I thought, could have good traction because it's evolution, not revolution. And we all know that the people who have to vote these things through are not going to completely rip things up. Like, my thinking was they might be open to a tweak, basically. So, framing it as a kind of gentle progression to 14, and then see how we go. But in terms of like how it actually broke down, or what I was proposing, it was basically you'd play each other twice, and that would be a total of 26 games, and then you'd split into a top 6 and then a bottom 8, and play each other twice more. So that effectively keeps your 4 Old Firm games that the broadcasters typically want. You could also add in extra playoff games between whoever finishes top of that bottom section. You could have them playing off against whoever finishes 4th or 5th overall for that last European spot. That again adds more drama, more jeopardy. People love these playoff games. You can also add in more relegation places to increase the flow between the leagues. And also, I would replicate it all up and down the leagues. I would actually go for 3 divisions of 14, 14, 14, rather than the current 12, 10, 10, 10.
Yep.
All the way down. And that actually keeps the same amount of teams, 42 overall. So that's what I was kind of proposing. And listen, I was absolutely delighted the video was really, was well watched. And I don't care that people disagreed, and I got comments being like, no, you need 16, you need this. I was like, brilliant, like bring it on, because this is why I set up the podcast. It's like, let's get this fucking conversation out there, because everyone cares about it and everyone wants to talk about it, and no one was talking about it. And that's why I set up the podcast in the first place. I was like, I was waiting for like BBC or STV or whoever to start having these conversations. Like, let's talk about league reconstruction. Let's talk about player pathways. And no one was kind of filling that void. So I'm honestly delighted that like so many people responded to it positively or negatively. And that video also led to the SPFL having those league reconstruction talks.
Yep.
So it had a direct effect, i.e. Neil Doncaster had to sit down with all the fucking clubs in Scotland to debate whether we'd go to a 14-team league. So that was actually quite nice. Like,
That's cool.
It didn't go anywhere, right? But like, again, they sat around the table and talked about it. And that is progress, at least, because they wouldn't have done so otherwise. So
what do you, like, why do you think that they didn't go for it or won't go for it?
because of the 11-to-1 voting system that's in place in Scotland. So to get any major change through in Scotland, like league reconstruction, 11 of the 12 clubs have to vote for it, which is an impossibly high bar to clear, because you basically, usually Celtic and Rangers will veto anything that's not in their interest.
Of course.
And for so many clubs, it's like, well, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's the attitude that there's always been in Scottish football. It's fine. It's working okay. Let's just keep it as it is. Let's not worry about upsetting Sky or opening up these conversations, because what happens if Sky withdraws their TV deal or something like that? Because they're all scarred from Setanta, a couple of decades ago. And it's really fragile, that kind of TV media landscape. So they don't want to upset Sky. And I can understand that. And I can totally understand the whole playing it safe thing. But what you fail to see is the fact that actually there could be an even better option out there as well. And you know what? If you change it to a 14-team league, or you do vote something through, do you know what? If it doesn't work, just change it back.
You said Belgium did that.
Yeah, they change their league every couple of years,
Yeah.
like Belgium, constantly trying to get the best thing that works for them. What's the most exciting way of doing it? And honestly, like, as long as Sky give it the okay, then just go for it. And do you know what? After a year or two, if it's not quite working, then that's fine. Just revert back. But honestly, I think what I was putting forward would be an improvement.
Yep.
And we'll see. You know, maybe next time they sit down around the table in a year or two, maybe they're more ready to vote positively on it.
Absolutely, because the product as a whole is just it struggles, man. I mean, you even watch, like Livingston and stuff like that. I mean, there's no one there. Like, I mean, if we start to pull away from like first, second, third, fourth, fifth, like as soon as you start to get to like the bottom half of the table, and it's sad to see when you watch the games on telly, and yeah, it's just there needs to be there clearly needs something to happen. We need it. We need to try it. As you said, like, it's all right if we're like, right, okay, this isn't quite it. Well, let's tweak this in 2 years' time and try that. And there's nothing wrong with that, because what we've got right now isn't making it exciting. We're continuing to slide down, as we said at the beginning. Even the top two, Celtic and Rangers, are continuing to slide down with themselves. And it's not like I moved back here and I've just not got back into it. Do you know what I mean? The league, like, I just haven't, and like I should go to more games, and that's why I don't like do a lot on like the Scottish league per se, because I don't like to talk about something that I really don't consistently watch. Right? I try and watch as much as I can, but there's some games, even there's times where I'm like, I don't even know. I don't even just pick two teams out my head, right? Like St. Johnstone, Motherwell, or something. But if one of them's doing really well that season, I'm like, oh, the class, they're playing this week. Oh, it's not on telly. Or, you know what I mean? And things like that. Like, how am I meant to watch it? So, no, could they even do like a streaming service? Could they gamble on that and say like, right, like, Netflix, 10 quid a month, and, would people sign up? I don't know. But,
Yeah, I mean, I would like to see Scottish football embrace a different kind of TV deal. They just went and just renewed another, 5-year deal with Sky that runs until 2029. Again, it's the same option pretty much that they had last time, and they're just renewing it. But yeah, is there a better model out there? Think about the MLS all access kind of subscription via Apple TV, stuff like that. There are alternative models. And every club does have their own kind of streaming service that they're allowed to broadcast a certain amount of games. But it's all kind of quite haphazard, and everyone's got their own streaming service. But actually, there is space for some joined-up thinking on that, for the clubs to kind of unite and have their kind of a collective service. Problem is Celtic and Rangers, because they've got their own streaming service. And why would they want to give up Celtic TV and Rangers TV? Because it all works to their advantage. So they're never going to say yes to it. And so it's every club for themselves, which is, again, a huge issue in Scottish football. Everyone's just kind of fighting for their own bit of pie. There's a lot of self-interest and not a lot of joined-up thinking. Whereas, actually, if you pool resources, you can raise all the ships in the sea, and things could be a lot better.
Yeah, I think two things actually on that. One of them is, I'll start with this because the second one's kind of more of a question to you. But I think overall we're in a dangerous place with football. I think that whole at the higher levels across the globe, that whole Super League concept that came across, I don't think that's going to disappear. I think what happens to Man City and their court verdict is going to have a massive impact. Because I think clubs like Newcastle and that, if City get away with it, are going to be like, all right, let's just run, and we're back to that open market. And I think I'm just using this as an example, I think if City get away all right out of that, I think we're in trouble and I include Celtic and Rangers in this, so I think they might be in discussions for that with like a global Super League. I think they would try and take them with them too, because of the support. think we're in a bit of trouble with football, and I think we need to make sure that everything you're suggesting is for in the improvement. We're talking specifically of the Scottish League, but the improvement for the fan, right? It's an improvement for the fan, which will in turn improve the clubs, the players that we want to come over, hopefully get more money in and everything like that. But do you think, I know this is like an age-old question, but do you think we should let Celtic and Rangers go to the English League? And if so, what do you think that would do?
I don't think the English League want Celtic and Rangers.
Yeah.
Genuinely, like I said at the beginning, it's like there was a lot of chat about this 20 years ago. And at that point, it would have been an advantage to the English Premier League because they're huge clubs and easily comparable to the top clubs in England. It's not the case anymore. It pains me to say, but like gone are the days where Celtic and Rangers could attract top players. And the English Premier League is so fucking strong. They just don't need Celtic and Rangers.
Yeah.
And a lot of them wouldn't want them because it makes them less likely. It reduces the amount of places, available in the Premier League to the other clubs. And yeah, I don't think anyone down south gives a shit about Scottish football.
Yeah, they don't.
They used to a degree, but nobody bats an eyelid. If you go to England, and even if you're talking about Celtic or Rangers, it's just not interested.
Yeah.
Nobody watches our games. Nobody watches the Old Firm game anymore. That's the sad reality.
Yeah.
Of it. Yeah.
And you're gonna kids, to get into like the youth part, to keep fans coming through and stuff like that. Like kids are gonna emulate what they see on telly and on YouTube and things like that, right? Probably more so YouTube than TV these days. So, if there's no footage of our games or looking at players that are like at Hearts or Aberdeen or Dundee, like I want to be him, I want to be there. Unless you're, in that close knit family, your dad takes you to the games and you become that fan, and that still exists and is all well and good. But there's these kids aren't aspiring to play there, right? It's become a stepping stone. But on our point, I don't think there's anything wrong with the league making that use to their advantage. Let's make it a stepping stone. And I do think, I know you're talking about like Celtic, but I would argue that I think in the past few years, let's take Matt O'Reilly. I think Nicholas Kuhn, who they've obviously signed. There's been lots, but I do think they know, right, we'll get a little bit of cash for him in a couple of years' time. Like he's decent, let's get him in or sell him in a year, and we'll just reinvest it with 3 more players, and we'll do it again. So I've said this for a while. I know the whole model over there is different, but the Bundesliga, as I said, you kind of know Bayern are going to win it, bar the last Leverkusen doing it, Dortmund with Klopp and stuff. But I watch those games on telly and I listen to a lot of stuff about the Bundesliga and the fans, and you watch the intensity and the quality of the games are all really good. And as you said, there's a style, there's a clear embodiment of like what the German league is there, which makes it interesting. But, those teams like Dortmund, they're happy to be like, yeah, sure, like we know Bellingham will come here and in 3 years' time we'll sell him for 100 million to Real Madrid, right? Like we're happy to do that and then reinvest the money. And it goes back to what you said earlier, being smart as a club, right? There's nothing wrong with that. And stop doing the same old things of going to League One and League Two and signing these guys that are 32 years old that are done, right? And they're not interested and they're not making the league any more fun to watch or anything like that. So, and I think it's deterring a lot of people. This is a bit of a positive. I think it's deterring people to go to more local matches. Like I've been to a few Musselburgh and Hampton games over the course of the last couple of years and hear people talk, and I talk about it, and they're like, this is actually more enjoyable than going to Easter Road or going to Pittodrie or that. Sometimes you can have a pie, you all go for beers before, beers after. Like it's local. I feel like it's almost kind of driving people there, which isn't a bad thing. But we want to make sure that the top league does well. It's going to filter down to everybody else. Hopefully, you would hope so if the pyramid system works. I know that's not always the case, but we just need innovation, and I think you opening up the conversation is a good thing to do, and it had the impact for them to obviously look to have a vote and everything to at least have a discussion to maybe change it. But we definitely need to keep pushing it.
Yeah, thanks. And it's not just me. It's lots of there's a growing number of voices out there who are all kind of engaged in this conversation.
Sure.
And my job is I host a podcast. I'm trying to get the expert guests on really to tell me what needs to happen.
Yep.
But yeah, Bundesliga. Exactly. It goes back to that earlier point of like, what do we want to be as a footballing nation in Scotland? Do we want to have £20 tickets like
Yeah.
they do in the Bundesliga? Yes, is the answer. Yes, we should find a way of doing that. Do we want to have amazing fan zones where families can all come out and have a great day out at the football and have fun before and after? Yeah, what a great idea. Can we find a way of doing that? I mean, some clubs are trying things along those lines, but come on, let's look at what Germany's doing, and also can we please get some pints as well?
Yeah, I was going to say that was one of the things I didn't want to touch on. Is like having a pint at a game. You make so many good points. You can go, Kendrick Lamar and SZA were just playing at Hampden. You can go and have beers when they're playing. Like, yeah, I get you. I mean, I've been to a couple of games in England and lower leagues on things like stag do's. You get a pint at halftime. Even been to Anfield, you can nip for a pint at halftime. Yeah, we need to change that too, man. We do need to change that. Yeah.
I had a couple of mates up from London a couple of years ago, and we went to the Hampden. I took them to the Scotland-Denmark game where we won 2-0. Mm-hmm. Great game. But yeah, at the beginning of the game, they were like, "Okay, do you want a pint? I was like, "Mate, you can't drink."
Yeah.
It's Scottish football. They were like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah." There was a riot 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And they were like, "Oh, really? You can't drink?" I was like, "Do you like Bovril?"
yeah. You want a hot bottle?
I mean, honestly, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like, how is that still banned? And again, it's that closing down of the conversation. Mm-hmm. And come on, this is something that fans at least want to chat about. Let's trial it. Start in the lower leagues, see how it goes. And obviously, you're not going to serve pints at Celtic Rangers games.
Sure, of course. Fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine. Nobody needs that.
Yeah.
But let's try it at some lower league clubs and so lower risk matches and see how it goes. And again, if it doesn't work, you can take it away again.
Sure.
Fine.
Also, they do know that like when you go to games, everyone just sneaks bottles of bucket in there.
Well, this
anyway,
is
right?
it. Yeah, this is it. Which is so much worse because everyone's downing stuff and sneaking shit in. And just have it in a nice controlled manner that everyone can kind of enjoy. And like I say, if it doesn't work, you can scrap it again. But it's been 40 years. Like it happened before I was born, and I'm an old man.
Yeah. Let's change it.
Yeah,
let's change it, mate. So much needs changed. It's it kind of just goes back to our point. We're slow on change. We don't want to have conversations. We're behind on so many aspects. Across so many different areas.
Is this making you depressed yet? This chat?
No, because and do you know what? It's because I was in California, sunny beaches, palm trees, coaching football, and I still came back here because of the people. I came back because of the Scottish people and the Scottish culture, right? And little did I know I'd be getting into this type of stuff. Because everyone that meets Scottish people and everything like that, and people love it when they come here, and there's so many good things about it. And we're talking about something like football, but it's a big thing for people. It's people's livelihood, and if you take it away from them, and like as you say, ticket prices and things like that. I mean, just with how life is and what they're doing, everyone feels squeezed and giving up season tickets. I know a lot of people that are having to do that have gone for their whole lives, taking their kids. Their dad took them. Like we're losing that, and we don't. Even like I always say to my pals, let's go to Tynecastle this weekend. I'm not paying 40 quid to watch that shite, is what most of them say, right? And we're not. Let's just go to a game. Like let's just like go enjoy it. But I get it. They're like, I'm not paying 40 quid to watch that shit. Like let's just go to the pub and just get the atmosphere and not go to the game. And that comes into kind of a lot of what we talked about being able to have a beer and the quality being pretty poor. It's just I don't know, but we can change it. We can change it if we just put. I worry there's gatekeepers at the top level that are very old headed, and I have seen this myself personally, through the whole time of when I started coaching here, even to when I've come back and I've gone to games, I've gone to local games. You listen to conversations that are being had. I speak to people that are managers and players, and it still has the same vibe to it that it did when I left here in 2012, 2011. And I'm like, how have we not shifted that, I do want to flip on a positive note to maybe kind of like end on though.
Yeah.
Is I think one area we should look to invest in that doesn't get talked a lot about is people being able to coach, like myself. So for example, I went to America because I could make a living off of that. I could get paid money straight away when I went to the States to coach football. I wanted to be a coach here, and I have to volunteer. I have to work my way up. And what a lot of these guys are doing, a couple that I've had on this podcast, that, you know, have their own coaching businesses, that's their income, but they also want to be a coach. So they go and they're taking on managerial jobs, and they're able to almost volunteer their time because they have a business on the side. But you know, speaking to them now, they've been doing it for a while, and they're like, I'm at an avenue where I need to pick here. So I want to continue to be this coach, and they're great coaches. They're very good at coaching the youth kids. They're getting into the adult levels, like the East of Scotland League. I had Liam Burns on, who was the Musselburgh manager. I like the way he looks at football. I like the way he does it. He's positive. He's open for change. He wants her to be changed. So there's guys out there like that, and I think coaching is, you know, we have like the whole Largs thing, and, you know, everyone's like Mourinho talks about it. I think that would be an area to invest in, and trying to get people an avenue. These like younger guys that are coming through that are watching this style of football, probably now not so much in Scotland as we're saying, in England, in the Bundesliga, in Belgium, you know, and bring that forth into the youth systems, and then eventually bring it to the top levels, you know.
Yeah, and coaching qualifications cost so much money.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really tricky. I don't know what the answer is. There's a lot of you know, Scottish people who want to be involved in football professionally, and I think that's amazing. But we need to find a way of harnessing that positively and benefiting the grassroots game, rather than it all being kind of volunteers, people doing it in their spare time. I would like to see probably some of the money that tends to go to the top of the game be redistributed to support grassroots clubs, to support grassroots coaches, because, you know, there is plenty of money still in Scottish football, but is it all going in the best places? And, you know, in terms of that coaching as well, you've obviously got things like performance schools and your kind of elite academies. There's a lot of resources that are focused on those. But if you're a child and you're not in that elite youth setup,
Yep.
and you're in a more grassroots line, then are you going to get the same opportunities and the same level of coaching and support? The answer is no. But talent can come from anywhere, and talent can emerge later as well. It's not necessarily going to come through the elite academies, and a lot of the time it doesn't.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we just need to absolutely have a relook at how people can be supported, because I think it's brilliant, all these young coaches and old coaches as well.
Yeah, of course.
But
of course.
you know, we need to support that and harness it, because it'll make our game better.
Yeah, it absolutely will do. It will do. And like I say, I've driven past sometimes, you know, throughout my time here. There's a youth game on. I'm not gonna like name clubs, but like big clubs in the Edinburgh area and stuff like that. That are known for their youth systems, and I've got little cousins and stuff that have good football players that get in that mix, and I go and watch. And unfortunately, the big problem with that stuff is a lot of the time is down to winning. And they're not actually helping the kids in the style of football, as you just said. There's no feeding of that through. So it's really down to the coaches. Like, well, if I don't win here, like, I'm gonna lose my job, even at, you know, like a youth type level, because it's quite ruthless and quite cutthroat. And we haven't even shifted that. Winning's important, right? Like, you got to win games and everything, but there's a balance of doing that with kids at youth level. And I think that's something. I think that's what you're saying, is the whole mentality is just wrong from top to bottom. I know we've sounded like we've been quite negative on this, but I think we're both in agreement. There's positive things, and there's room for change, which is a positive thing, right?
Yeah. I always find this chat therapeutic. Every time I do a podcast, I come away thinking, oh, I'm glad I've got all that off.
Yeah.
Off my shoulder. But it's important to talk about these things. There's a lot of frustration. You know, we haven't touched on half the subjects, but we need to just get this conversation out there. People need to be having it at every level. And the people who actually have the power to change things need to start having these conversations as well. So yeah, it's an important conversation to have.
It is. I think there'll be a lot of people intrigued in this, man. Like you said, we've barely touched on. Yeah, we've barely scratched the surface. This could be like a Joe Rogan 3 hour gig. We might need to do that one day. But is there anything else that we haven't kind of touched on that you maybe thought in your head that you would like to maybe mention at all, or?
No, I'm good. I mean, it's like I say, always good to chat about these things, and people are, if they're interested in finding out more, there's obviously I've got a YouTube channel and obviously podcasts dating back a couple of years now, so they can search back through the archives because there's a lot of interesting conversations I've had, like I say, with kind of experts in the know. And the beauty is the podcasts that I record typically a couple of years ago are still as relevant today as they were back then because nothing fucking changes.
Yeah, so it's so funny because as I said to you, I was watching everything over the course of the last couple of days, and yeah, I'm looking, when was this posted? And you're like 2 years ago. I'm like, fuck, like he's right, nothing has changed. But good for you for being someone that is trying to push that conversation and not giving up with it. And I know you said you have other things going on in your life, and the podcast is like a passion project, but I'd encourage you to try and just keep doing it as much as you can.
Thanks,
because
thanks.
it's good to listen to. It's good to hear those types of people from me who definitely has a bit more of an eye on wanting to understand that type of stuff a bit more. Probably using this medium. And to maybe at some point be in a position to try and help like get some change. I think having conversations does help that. But yeah, keep it going, mate. Keep it going.
Thanks, Josh.
Yeah,
Appreciate
you're welcome. So and all the socials, it's just improving Scottish football, right?
Yeah, that's
improving
right.
Scottish
Yeah,
football.
yeah.
Cool.
And me personally as well. If you're ever on LinkedIn, it's a bit of a kind of wanky platform, but you got to be on LinkedIn as well. If anyone wants to connect with me personally as well, you can find me on there.
Okay, cool, good. Definitely have people do that. But yeah, check out Kieran's pages. It's really interesting. The YouTube stuff's cool. The stuff on Twitter, obviously, like you said, there's the short form content on TikTok, where the video did really well. Yeah, like I say, we might need to do another one of these one day and touch on a lot more subjects. Let a bit of time pass and see if anything changes. And we might need to get a big one in. But no, thank you for doing it. I was really looking forward to it today.
Good.
Yeah.
Well, it's been fun, Josh.
Yeah, it's
Thanks.
been fun. Glad, man. And anytime you ever need someone to come on and talk about football, mate, I'm always down for it. So just give me a shout and let me know.
Brilliant.
Perfect. All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it, man.
Cheers.
Thank you. Cheers.